But yeah, Joey, thank you. And thank you for kind of tapping me to host this. Excited about this event. I will give a brief intro to myself and then I'll let our panelists introduce themselves. But I'm Toby Aguna. I'm one of the co founders and the CEO of Chezi. We are a software platform that helps companies manage their employee resource groups and other internal communities. I've been part of Goody Nation basically since I moved to Atlanta, I think in 2021. I've joined a bunch of events and just really grateful for the community that it's kind of given me as a founder. And yeah, excited about this panel, the opportunity to just talk about workforce development and how that looks for Atlanta and the broader Black tech scene. This is my first time moderating this type of event, so y'all bear with me a little bit, but I'll hand it over to, let's start with Jamie. Why don't you start with your introduction, and I'll kind of pass it to Mark and then Melanie.
Appreciate it, Toby. So my name is Jamie Jelks. I am the Atlanta chapter lead for Black Product Managers Network. And our goal is just to increase the representation of Black folks in the product space within the tech industry. So I'm excited to be here, excited to connect with people and have a good conversation.
Good stuff. Okay, let's go to Mark.
Excellent. My name is Mark Lawson. I'm the Director of Technology for Technologies of Color. We're here to support Black people in their career and help them advance. We do that through workforce development and curated events. And we're Atlanta-based.
Cool. Okay. And Melanie, you can close this out.
Hello, my name is Milani Boatswain. I am the president of the Atlanta chapter of Blacks in Technology. I am also the Southeast Regional Director for Blacks in Technology. And our organization was founded in 2008, and we are currently the world's largest organization for Black technologists with over 40,000 members in 28 countries and over 80 chapters. And we are known for stomping the divide and establishing a blueprint for world-class technology excellence and innovation and providing resources, guidance, and mentorship to our members of the Black tech community. Happy to be here.
Really cool. And Milani, I apologize for mispronouncing your name there. All right, cool. Let's jump in. Jamie, I got this first question for you. What do you think are the one or two most important opportunities, but also threats to the state of the tech workforce in Atlanta going as we get into 2025?
Yeah, see, this is the big question already. So threats and opportunities to the Atlanta Black tech force, especially as I think of product management. I think the number one threat, Joey kind of hit on a little earlier, just like the backlash on DEI initiatives. And the impact that those would have on the tech community, especially as we look to grow the number of Black folks in tech. A lot of these DEI initiatives create like structured pathways for us to get into these companies and stay in these companies. So I think that is one of the biggest threats. And I think another threat would be, and I think there's going to be a panel after this that talks about like funding for Black entrepreneurs in the tech space. The fact that that's still limited and that there's a discrepancy in the amount of capital that Black founders are able to access is also another threat. But I do think an opportunity would be, I think the fact that in the Atlanta market, we're moving, we're kind of booming. There's a lot of tech professionals here and we have a community, and the fact that the mayor and other officials are behind making Atlanta a top tech hub, I think that's very important. So I think that's going to be a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, I definitely feel the DEI backlash being in the space that we sit in. Mark or Milani, anything that y'all want to add to that before we move on to the next question?
I definitely think another threat to add, and we kind of saw this a little bit in 2024, is just kind of the rollback of funding on the Black tech initiatives. I know that a lot of my counterparts that are leading other Black tech organizations, they were throwing money at us, 2020, 2021, as the outcry of George Floyd. And it's kind of, once society kind of got back to quote unquote normal, people became more complacent, companies became more complacent. And we did see a huge rollback in funding to spearhead the initiatives that we were funding previously, providing certification programs, providing career development, providing scholarships for our members. So we've had to get really creative in our fundraising efforts.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too. That makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Let's get into this next one. Mark, I'll tee up this question for you. What do you think is your ideal and like imagined, in a perfect world, what does Atlanta's Black tech scene look like?
So Atlanta has a lot of advantages. We have several colleges here that are pumping out the type of talent that we need. We have employers, other organizations. I think my ideal situation involves that entire ecosystem working together. I think that one of the large components, I know that people talk about the pipeline, but I also think that there's a hole in the pipe insofar as of the individuals who move into the industry, they don't get the support they need, and then they end up moving out of the industry because there's not the growth there. So I think my idea of how everything can be improved is that there needs to be tutelage from the CTO down and mentorship in terms of not just getting into the industry, but how you support your career, how you move around in your career. And it needs to be knowledge that is given from a community base insofar as that you can talk honestly and in-depthly and candidly with those around you about what you're experiencing and how they can progress their career. So I think that it's very important that we utilize all of what Atlanta has to give in order to actually make sure that it thrives as an ecosystem.
Definitely feel that. I don't know if that was my phone or not, but Jamie, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. In the product space, I lean very much towards like the startup community, and I think my ideal state of the Atlanta Black tech ecosystem is for it to continue to grow at like a startup hub. I don't see a reason why this cannot just be the startup capital of the U.S., let alone the Black startup capital. But I think we have a lot of opportunity in that space if we can't keep pouring resources into not just Black founders, but the startup community in general. I would love to see Atlanta become the hub for startups. So, and then going back to DEI, I mean, ideally, I would like to see all of our companies that either Atlanta is their headquarters or they have some type of brick and mortar here in Atlanta. I would like to see them continue to champion DEI initiatives and create pathways for like local talent to get hired. I think as you know, I saw in the chat someone mentioned that DEI is not dead. I don't think DEI is dead, but I think in markets like Atlanta, if we focus on local hiring, we can still make sure we get people employed at some of these companies.
Yeah, Jamie, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Local hiring. Atlanta is, gearing up to be, a top tech hub in not only the United States, but in the world. I do think that, we have a lot of the largest tech companies here in Atlanta, but they're headed by a lot of people moving into Atlanta instead of hiring locally, right? So Atlanta is the Black Mecca. There's not a shortage of Black people in technology here in Atlanta. That's not the issue. But hiring locally, getting these companies to really kind of, be proponents of hiring locally would definitely help out the Atlanta Black tech community.
Oh, sorry, y'all missed my mute button. Thank y'all for that feedback, though. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Melania, I'll come back to you actually on this one, boomerang it. If you ruled the world, what would be your idea to improve economic mobility for Black people? Big question here.
If I ruled the world, yeah, okay, yeah, take it back to Queensbridge, yeah. New York City. I'm New York all day. So if I ruled the world, I would definitely make sure that access to education and resources for Black people within the community. So this is ensuring that they have resources to education, the tools that they need, the certifications that they need. We all know that these tech certifications are extremely expensive, right? So a lot of the work that I do within our organization is making sure that we have resources available to offset those costs, if not give those certifications to people within our communities for free. But, investing in targeted educational initiatives, creating scholarship programs for Black people that want to get into STEM-related careers, forging partnerships with tech giants like Intuit and Microsoft to provide internships and mentorship and job placement pipeline for Black students and professionals. Also, would love to see a government-backed inclusion plan, especially digital inclusion. So, the state of Georgia has a huge digital equity push. I think that this is definitely an initiative that we can stand behind. We know that digital equity, having access to broadband is a utility. And having access to high-speed broadband allows people to work from home, allows people to attend school. And we need to have policies that incentivize companies to create equitable pathways for Black workers in the tech space and Black students in the tech space to get the resources that they need. So if I rule the world, I would definitely lean on getting access to education, resources, certifications, and creating digital equity in the Black community.
I'll mute again. Nice. Okay, cool. And thank you for sharing that. It was a bunch of good wishes. Good luck with I'm curious about the efficacy of the government one, considering where we are today, but let's be hopeful. Oh, Joey Baltan, you wanted to ask a question? You're on mute.
Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to still answer that same question or ask that same question to the others, I'll wait till they finish and I'll pose my own question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Jamie or Mark, anything you want to add to that? Like, I'll rephrase the question. If you rule the world, what would be your idea to really improve economic mobility for Black people?
Yeah, if I ruled the world, I'd get rid of gatekeeping. And really, I think I'm really on the same wavelength as Milani. I think there's a lot of people who want to get into the tech space that don't always have the social capital to get there. So one, building those relationships, that mentorship opportunities, but also just like these clean handoffs of folks. If you get people who have these strong transferable skills, they know how to communicate, they can do the job, and they have be given the opportunity to demonstrate they can do the job. Let's connect them with the hiring managers who are really trying to hire. And get them in these seats that need to be filled. I think there's too many times where you have these talented people who can't get past a resume screening, can't get past a phone screening, they go through 7 rounds of interviews and still can't get the job. I think if I ruled the world, I would create some type of system where it's, hey, the talented people get jobs and get in front of folks. So that's where I'm at.
Mark, anything you want to add to that?
I'd say exposure. I think there are plenty of jobs out here that individuals are not aware of. And that part of the reason that people are leaving is that there's not a pathway that they know about. There are not other things that carry their interest because they're not exposed. It's not something that's in their family. They may have gone to CS school. They may have come out as an engineer, but the way the tech industry is changing, that there are new jobs, there are new pathways being created. And unless you know someone who's currently doing that work, it's not imagined for you. So I think that there'd be exposure, there'd be transparency. So not just a lack of gatekeeping, but transparency as to what is out there.
Love it. Joey, I'll hand it over to you. Do you have anything you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. So I want to ask, like, for each of these folks here, like, what are you hearing from your members? Like the real, right? Like, but the real, what's happening. So again, things are shipping in real time. As now we're almost at the end of January. What are you hearing from your members? And then how does that affect like your top 2 or 3 priorities for the year, right? So just for the audience, one of the reasons why we ask for tech workforce, these folks here, they run either, they essentially run organizations or chapters of organizations. They can speak for their their larger member base without literally like representing a big company, right? There's a little bit of, at least in theory, there's a little bit of cover there. So, what are some of the things, and Melanie, I'll speak, I'll go to you first. What are some of the things your folks are saying and in terms of what's really happening in at their jobs? And again, how does that flow down to your top 2 or 3 things you're focused on for 2025 in Atlanta?
Well, I mean, I think Jamie hit it on the head. Gatekeeping. One of the things that I heard, I just spoke to one of my members who was recently laid off. And I think that's, we see layoffs within the tech ecosystem, but when we're trying to get people rehired and trying to get them into, these jobs, we want to make sure that we are, bringing them to people who are actually hiring. And, if we know of recruiters, if we know of companies that are hiring, being able to have those conversations with the recruiters and say, hey, we have a really highly talented person. They've been through, 2 or 3, 4 rounds of interviews. What can they do to be successful in getting, the actual job? So I think that's one of the big things that I've heard from the members is that when you have the tech layoffs, once you've landed the tech job, you've kind of gotten through that hurdle, and then you get laid off and you're kind of going through that cycle all over again. Really kind of understanding how we can break that cycle, how we can leverage these networking events. All of our organizations throw amazing networking events. And I really want us to be, more intentional about getting our members in front of people who are actually hiring, and then charging ourselves to have hiring metrics. How many of our members have we been able to get jobs? How many people have we been able to connect them with that gave them real opportunities?
Dope. Mark, what about you? Right. So you all are mainly, developers and stuff. Essentially, I think the majority of members, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So what are the Black software developers in the light in cybersecurity folks in Atlanta? What are they saying? And again, what are some of your top priorities and goals for TOC for the year?
So we have technologists across the board, but what we are seeing mostly, again, is that anxiety, right? About what happens if I do lose my job, and who's hiring? How do I get back into the workforce? I think, as Melanie said, that they are weary of the process, right? It seems like now that there are several different ways in which to submit your resume or to in some way interact with an employer, but that doesn't mean it's a real job. You go through several different interviews and no one calls you back. You see that same job pop up again, even though you did not get it, or it seemed like it was taken. So there's a lot of kind of despair around the process. And so one of the things that I champion and we're working on is not just that networking piece in terms of just meeting individuals, but you need to know someone who's actually at the company that you need to work, that you want to work for, someone who actually does hiring, and you need to have peers who are in those corporations. And then instead of trying to get hired through a LinkedIn link, that you actually utilize that network in order to find out where these jobs are, to vet the company, and to do that. So we're working a lot in terms of not just telling people to network, but we're trying to instruct them on a better way in which to go about it.
Nice. And Jamie, what about you? So are you all at BPM? Do you all have any programs or new projects or anything you're spending up for this year?
Yeah, so we have some of our staple programs. So with BPM, we kind of deal with people at a couple different levels. We have a number of people who are looking to transition into tech and into product management. We have people who may be early career in product management, trying to level up. And then we have people who may be senior level PMs who are looking to also level up. But I think the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of our members is just like how tough this job market is. Because people at all those different levels, one, they're either trying to get a new job or maintain their current job. And so for the people who are in this job market looking for employment, we have these new folks, these early career folks competing against people with, let's say, 10 years of product experience. So it is just a tough job market for a lot of folks. But I think some of the feedback we've gotten is kind of what Mark hit on, the fact that the importance of just referrals in this market. It's really hard to get a job at some of these companies just going through their website or going through LinkedIn or something like that. You really have to know employees at those companies, hiring managers, and have someone who can vouch for you and refer you to a lot of these companies. So I think that's why it's that much more important for us to develop these corporate partnerships, to build these communities. So we're networking and making sure people have the right contacts to get them to some of these companies.
Dope. And Toby, I want to kick it over to you, and then I'll hand it fully back over to you before we close out. But you sit in a unique position in that your customers are leaders of ERGs, correctly? So whether they're customers or not, I'm sure you're talking with ERG leads and stuff like that. From your daily work, like what are you seeing? Any insights there and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the work is continuing. It's just being rephrased, I guess is maybe how I would describe it. I spoke to a customer today, pretty big, well, hopefully, knock on wood, prospective company. Hopefully they sign in the next month or so, but about 40,000 people. And they are actually transitioning to where their DEI team is being put under their corporate social responsibility arm or department. And that's simply put because, generally speaking, people don't have pushback on corporate social responsibility, but there's obviously some people that push back on DEI. And that allows them to continue to do the work, to still have ERGs, to still kind of promote, inclusive practices, just kind of rename it. And, in the spirit of staying alive, like we are, like we if a company comes to us and they're very explicitly supporting DEI and talking about employee resource groups, we can have that conversation. But we're also sort of repositioning ourselves to just talk about how Chezi supports, employee communities, because that's not, again, that specific framing is not something that we get a lot of pushback on. ERGs, DEI is something that, kind of varies from company to company. So, the work is continuing. I think most companies, despite what you see in the headlines, most companies are retaining. We can literally look at people's budgets and see that most companies are retaining their budgets. If anything, they've dropped, somewhere between 2 to 5%. I had a LinkedIn post about this recently. And I would, push anyone to find a department across any of these big enterprises that hasn't had their budget cut between 2 to 5%. That seems about normal to me. So anyway, to answer your question, Joey, I think it's the work is still being done. It's just kind of shifting what it's called, which I think is kind of just part of how business works anyway. So we don't need to necessarily say it's explicit to DEI in terms of that happening.
Right. And Toby, and
yeah, no,
I can't speak for everywhere else, but I know here in Atlanta, corporate responsibility, putting DEI into corporate responsibility and shifting to local hiring practices actually would not work in our favor. That actually would work in our favor. And I do advocate for any of the companies that I consult for to hire locally. Right. And in hiring locally here in Atlanta, you're able to, get more jobs for the Black community.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know we only got about 7 more minutes here according to the chat. So let's get into the next, hopefully 1 or 2 more questions. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit here. What do y'all think if you could kind of give people one actionable step that, the people listening to this can take away that will hopefully champion, Black tech access in Atlanta, what would that be?
I think for me is 1, stop gatekeeping. But really, we have to really continue to foster community and build relationships. I think the answer to a lot of our problems we can figure out within the community, but we have to build those relationships. We have to be social. We have to be connected, and we have to be willing to mentor other people and be a resource when possible. So I think continue to build community and foster corporate partnerships. I think those are 2 good solutions.
Got it. Cool. Okay. Mark, you want to go ahead and share yours?
I would say a similar thing is that if you're in the industry right now, that you should be seeking out someone to mentor. It's not just about what they can receive, but it's what you can receive as well, because they have a fresh perspective on things. But you need to be actively trying to pass on your knowledge. And if you're not doing that, if you're not seeking out people in order to help improve them, you're not improving yourself either.
That's a good word. Milani, you want to close out this question?
Well, I definitely think that in all of our organizations, kind of, pulling our resources together, making sure that we are providing cross-organizational support. Jamie and Mark, you may have a member of your organization that is looking for a reference to a company that, is one of our sponsors or that we're working with. And I definitely want to kind of be a resource throughout the Black tech ecosystem. So I definitely think, one of my biggest sayings of 2024 is collaboration over competition within all of our organizations, and making sure that we are being thought leaders and coming together and providing the access that our members are seeking.
Awesome. And then the very last question that we got here. This is an opportunity for y'all to ask for stuff like, well, what do y'all need? How can people support you or join, the movements that y'all are pushing? And I might actually chime in on this one myself. But Mark, why don't we start with you?
So first of all, you can find us on all social media at Techs of Color or at www.techsofcolor.org. And what we're looking for participation, right? So we need you to actually come out to those networking events, meet someone, share your skills. We also, again, it's the workforce development. We have what we call Coding While Black. So we actually get together, we open up the laptops and we code together, right? So I just come out to the event, meet someone, and then share who you are with that individual. And then you'll knock off a lot of these things that I'm championing right off this list just by being in place.
Nice. Milani, you want to go ahead? What do you need?
So, I mean, plainly put, we need funding. So we need people that are going to help volunteer and help us fundraise. We are looking to kind of reorganize our organization here locally, and spreading out further than just the Metro Atlanta area. We have members in Macon, we have members in Augusta, we have members in Athens. So with that, people are always asking me how they can get involved. We would love to have volunteers. We would love for people to volunteer, just to kind of do corporate outreach, even within your own company. If your company has, volunteer matching or donation matching opportunities, we would invite you to kind of join our sponsorship and fundraising committees. And then also what we need is more collaboration with you all, and we do a great job of that, Jamie, Mark, and Joey, and we've all kind of worked together, but I want to see more of that in 2025. We've got to come together, start doing more things together, pulling our resources. And I think that would definitely help us serve the Atlanta tech community the best.
Love it. If I can quickly chime in here, I would just ask for, the funny one is an easy one, but selfishly, anyone that is connected to, I'm sure there are people on this call that are connected to employee resource groups, either at their companies or at other companies, would welcome a chance to kind of talk to you all about how you're managing and supporting those groups. And then more broadly, as it relates to the point of this specific panel and tonight's event, I am on the board of a charter school in DeKalb County called DeKalb Brilliance Academy. The school's been around for about 3 years now. They're doing fantastic stuff. I work very closely with the head of school, Jocelyn Alter, and their team. We are looking for potential people to join the board, and there was a call to action in the last panel for people to kind of volunteer their efforts and get people into STEM. We do a lot of stuff with the kids that are called, it's called project-based learning, where we bring in actual people to talk about, the work that they do, and they do real-world projects on, building apps and selling products and stuff like that. So I just dropped my LinkedIn into the chat. If you are at all interested in joining the board or just volunteering, we'd love to have you. You can message me and connect with me there. But yeah, I think with that, we are about at